Harvey College welcomes you all. Environment is the surrounding in which we live. It is a source of life. Our whole life is dependent to the environment. World Environment Day is celebrated on 5th June every year in order to create awareness among people about how important preserving nature and environment is. Out of the entire population, most of the people are unaware about how important it is to have a sustainable environment. We all should focus on doing the deeds that get positive in the environment and tend to stabilize the traits of the environment. Chief focus should be on minimizing the activities that make the environment unhealthy for living of any organism. We should make people more aware about how important it is to breathe safe quality environment. So, on the occasion of World Environment Day, we have organized a webinar to create awareness about the role of algae in environment protection. Speaker for the webinar is Dr. Smita Patil. She is currently research scientist at Reliance Industries Private Limited. She has worked on many research projects related to algae. Few are ultracentrifugation of pigment protein complexes from green algae, Chlamydomonas reinhardti, subcloning of PDZ domain of HTRA2 and expression, purification, and biophysical characteristics of its domain. She has presented in many national and international conferences. One of her recent conference topics was biophysical and biochemical characterization of light harvesting antenna of high light prone Chlamydomonas reinhardti, an international conference on advance in algae biotechnology at IIT Bombay, India. She has 5 patents from which the current one is response of algae to high light exposure, prerequisite from species selection for outdoor cultivation. Taking no time, I would like to welcome Dr. Smita Patil ma'am and request her to take further the webinar. But just before that, just a quick instruction to the participant. Kindly mute your audio and webcam during the webinar. The participant should not unmute oneself while the session is in progress. Questions or doubt should be asked during question answer sections in the chat or when asked by the speaker or host to unmute. We are sure that this webinar will complement to your learning objectives. Thank you. Now would like Smita Patil ma'am to take the webinar further. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you, Disha. Give me a moment to start my presentation here. A very good evening to everyone. Today, it is my pleasure to represent my organization, Reliance Industries Limited, in this forum. I would like to inform you that the information used in this presentation comes from multiple sources, and I request you to not misinterpret or mispresent anything from this presentation. The scope of this presentation is only for knowledge sharing and not necessarily to provide any advice or recommendation to the audience. Before moving on to the topic, I would like to share a few slides about our organization with you all. As we all know that being a market leader across energy and material value chain and consumer businesses, Reliance is India's one of the most profitable company today. In the year 2018-19, it has recorded a net income of 5.7 billion US dollars, with the only company having PBDIT being higher than 10 million US dollars. and market cap of around 125 billion US dollars. For past 40 years, the growth of Reliance has been phenomenal, and research and technology has been central to everything that Reliance has ever done. From our very first textile plants to the world's largest greenfield refinery to our latest geo business, all utilize the best available technology to create timeless assets that give long-term returns to our stakeholders. Reliance Industries has committed a significant R&D effort in the area of renewable energy and biochemicals, including algae to biocrude and cellulosic sugars. Moving on to the topic for presentation today, we all know that algae are well explored for their ability to be used as third generation biofuels, and they have potential to replace around 70% of nation's imported oil. On occasion of World Environment Day, today we will focus mainly on environmental application of algae during this presentation. World Environment Day, as just Tisha mentioned, is to create awareness and action to protect our environment. Now let us look at how algae help in the environment protection. Uh, I'm sure that most of us have heard of this term, carbon footprint, right? Now, uh, can I start with asking how many of us like to travel? I mean, I'm very sure that everybody loves to travel, right? Think of some journey starting from destination X to destination Y. Now, during this journey, this can be a local travel, can be an international travel, can be a national travel. The journey can be very close to like a market. It can be by bus, it can be by train, it can be by flight. But during any of such journey, do we understand what is the impact of such transport on the environment? Now, let us understand how it can impact, even the smaller journey can impact the environment. Say every day we commute to either office or college or some place where starting from point X to point Y, there is certain distance traveled. So in such cases, any of the distance which is traveled by a car with a single passenger emits a lot more CO2 than a domestic flight can emit. Now, a car which travels only with single passenger emits more CO2 compared to a car which travels with four passenger. Now, why it is so? It is because the CO2 emission per passenger is calculated, which is more in this case. Let me just start a pointer in this here. So if you can see this diagram on the right hand side, it shows the distribution of CO2 emissions with every transport mode. It has shown that in the road transport, car emits the highest CO2 emission when only single passenger is traveling, whereas domestic flight in that case emits less CO2. But if you look at the non-CO2 emissions, they are higher. This is because as we go to higher altitude transport, the non-CO2 gases are also emitted. Now, this the diagram at the left hand side bottom is showing the country-wise distribution of CO2 emission. Now, each CO2 emission emitted per passenger is called as carbon footprint. The diagram here denotes the carbon footprint per country. That is denoted as it is per passenger. Now, one of the major concern in this case is not just CO2, but also other toxic gases which are released. But among all of them, CO2 capture or CO2 emissions are the major concern. Now, there are different ways in which US National Energy Technology Laboratory has listed by which CO2 can be captured and can be utilized in different applications. Now, one of the application or one of the ways in which CO2 can be captured is by usage of algae. This is because algae exhibit one phenomenon called as photosynthesis. I'm very sure that everybody has heard of this term, that is photosynthesis. It is a unique photobiological response which is exhibited by algae, wherein the bunch of algae take up sunlight, CO2, water, and nutrients to produce biomass. Now, this biomass can be harvested and utilized for different applications. The organisms which carry out photosynthesis are called as photosynthetic organisms, and they have a specialized structure called as chlorophyll, which is denoted by a green dot here. So, to summarize here, algae take up CO2, water, and light energy, and using this chlorophyll pigment or a molecule, they produce biomass in form of sugars, which can be used in different metabolic processes inside the algal cell. We know that even plants are photosynthetic organisms and they also carry out photosynthesis. However, if we compare plants with algae, the energy conversion efficiency, that is conversion of solar energy to the chemical energy, is much higher in case of algae. This is because algae have better carbon concentrating mechanism compared to that of plants. Before we start, let us know more about algae. Till now, what we know is algae are photosynthetic organism. But where are they present? They are the primary producers of the ocean. They are mainly in the form of phytoplanktons. However, algae can be present in different water bodies like lakes or any wet surface on the land also. They produce more than half of oxygen that we breathe. Now, how do they look like? Algae is a very broad term that include algae and cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria is nothing but the blue-green algae. Although they are more or less similar, they have different features. Like algae are eukaryotic, while cyanobacteria are prokaryotic. In case of eukaryotic algae, they have well-defined structures like chloroplast, nucleus, etc. Whereas in case of cyanobacteria, everything is present in within the stroma in single cell. Algae and cyanobacteria both can be unicellular or multicellular. They can be present in different shapes. They can be present in clusters or they can be motile and non-motile. That is, they can have a flagellated structures. There are different types of classifications. Like the one which is shown here is based on the pigment that they possess. The classification that is based on pigment content is green algae, brown algae, dinoflagellates, diatoms, red algae, and euglenoids. Now, the diagram that you see here at the right side bottom is one of the model organism, that is Chlamydomonas. Chlamydomonas is a oval-shaped motile green alga which has the flagella to it. It has a single chloroplast and a nucleus. Now, as I mentioned that photosynthetic organisms carry out photosynthesis, which is carried out in the specialized structure called as chloroplast, which is shown here. Now, in case of algae, which have the specialized carbon concentrating mechanism, they have few of them have the specialized structure called as pyrenoid, which has this mechanism in place where actual photosynthesis occurs. Now, after understanding this, let us look at the different applications of algae that are mainly environment related. As I mentioned that the CO2 footprint is one of the major concern across the world, not only just a few countries. Now, CO2 capture, which is one of the ways that is listed by US NETL, as I mentioned earlier, that is one of the promising way to capture more CO2. This is not just algae, even plants are being used for CO2 sequestration. However, algae being more efficient in carbon and solar energy capture, they are most promising candidates. CO2 sequestration is a long-term removal of carbon dioxide to slow or reverse the atmospheric CO2 pollution and to mitigate global warming. While many of the nations are struggling to reduce their carbon emission, the Kingdom of Bhutan is already carbon negative. As we know that a few of the countries claim to be carbon negative or carbon neutral. Bhutan is one of the countries which claim to be a carbon negative country. And that means Bhutan is a country which takes up more greenhouse gases compared to that which are released in the atmosphere. Now, algae-based CO2 conversion is very much cost-effective and viable option for atmospheric CO2 removal. And along with the CO2 removal, algae cultivation strategies have potential to obtain valuable products like those are food, feed, pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, and agricultural, etc. Now, the diagram which you see here on your right-hand side denote the CO2 sequestration plant using microalgae. Microalgae use up the solar energy which is freely available. The CO2 which is emitted from every small activity during our daily life, even from the industrial CO2 release, that can be concentrated and sent to the microalgae cultivation plant, where a specialized reactor called as photobioreactor, which takes up sunlight or different types of energy, light energy, and CO2 from atmosphere, and help algae to grow and convert this light and CO2 into biomass. Now, the biomass which is generated through the process of photosynthesis can be used for different applications. Not just this concentrated plants, but also few countries like mainly European countries have come up with the CO2 capture along the highways. That is, they have this bioreactors which are placed along the highways that use up solar light and CO2 which is generated by vehicular movement or any other process, and use it for the biomass production. As I mentioned, the biomass which is generated is used for multiple application after refining, that is for food, animal feed, feedstock, cosmetics, nutraceutical, pharmaceuticals, etc. The other major application of algae is wastewater treatment. Now, wastewater treatment is one of the major concern across the cosmopolitan cities. Not only that, everywhere in that case, wastewater is any water that has been contaminated by human use. It is a byproduct of domestic, industrial, commercial, and agricultural activities. Now, wastewater is it has certain impact on the ecosystem directly. This is because wastewater is mainly rich in organic and inorganic compounds, and it has very high BOD and COD. I'm sure we know what is BOD and COD is. BOD is a biological oxidation demand, and COD is chemical oxidation demand, that is related to the oxygen that is required to degrade the organic and inorganic compounds in biological and chemical way. Now, the very pristine rivers or the clean rivers, they have BOD values of around 5 mg per liter, whereas the municipal sewage can go up to 200 or maybe more than that if it is contaminated with organic and inorganic matter. Now, such sewage water that needs pre-treatment and even further refining before that can be released into the water bodies. Now, why it is required? Because if the wastewater is released directly into the oceans, in that case, that can harm the aquatic ecosystem. That is, the oxygen that is used up from the water bodies that depletes the oxygen that is available to the ecosystem, and that have impact on the ecosystem or the food chain that is present in the water bodies. The diagram here on the right hand side shows the wastewater treatment plant using algae. Now, there are different wastewater treatment plants using bacteria, protozoa, etc. The one which uses algae have that can have a specialized design in which algae are exposed to the sunlight, or that can have the energy input or light energy input, which is LED light or the artificial light. The basic wastewater treatment plant include a primary treatment, that is Without any treatment, the wastewater is just left for settling down of the heavy particles. After the settling down of heavy particles, whatever supernatant is there, that is transferred to the secondary or the tertiary treatment plant. Now this plant gets the initial inoculum, that is the initial culture that is used for algae growth here, that comes from the inoculum tank. Algae, inoculum algae and the effluent water that is from the primary treatment that is allowed to grow together in the specialized reactors. Now after the growth of algal biomass here, the water which is the water which is clear that again goes to the secondary clarifier, whereas the algal biomass goes to different parts. It can directly go to the biomass used in the application which I just mentioned, like pharmaceutical, nutraceutical, feed, food, etc. Whereas the solid particles or the heavy particles which are removed, they go to the anaerobic digestion. Now, anaerobic digestion has multiple byproducts like biogas. The nutrients which are recovered from this process are recycled back to the PBR. They can be reused. The CO2 that is released can again go to the algae growth plant or the PBR. The wastewater treatment in case of algae is it has multiple application compared to the uh, that related to fungi or protozoa or other wastewater treatment, which are more based on the activated sludge process. As algae have other byproducts that can be used in other applications. The other environmental application of algae include the biosorption or heavy metal removal. Now, as we all know that there are different industries which makes use of heavy metals like zinc, nickel, lead, copper, cadmium, etc. Now, many of these heavy metals, if they are accumulated in the food web or they start integrating into the food chain, they are that is called bioaccumulation basically. So they cause certain diseases. Like there is very well known disease called as Eta Eta and Minimata, which were related to the heavy metal accumulation into the food web. Now, most of this heavy metal come from the industries like tannery industry, mining, electroporating, and chemical manufacturing, etc. Now, there is a very important role of algae in the biosorption process of this heavy metal. This is because algae, even if they are live or dead, they have the capability to remove this heavy metal. Now, there are different mechanisms by which algae can take up this heavy metals. The We'll come to the mechanism in a short while. We'll look at the toxicity part. So, different heavy metals which are related to the toxicity, they directly have the effect on the human health. They can not only human health, but entire ecosystem can be affected if the heavy metal starts to accumulate in the environment. Now, the non-biodegradability is one of the major concern for the heavy metal accumulation. Let us look at the mechanism by which heavy metals are removed by algae. Consider this is the algal cell. Now, algal cell mainly include ion exchange, that is heavy metal of the ions which are formed by the heavy metal. They are exchanged with ions in the algal cell. Now, not only ion exchange, algae allow the diffusion, surface adsorption, complexation, and metal chelation. Now, few of the processes like adsorption, they can be done, or even the dead algae cells are able to adsorb this heavy metal. However, processes like diffusion, which needs internalization of heavy metal, they are mainly related to the live algal cells. Now, after all of the processes, what happens is heavy metals are converted to they are converted to the less toxic products or compounds, and then if they can be released into the environment, that should be fine. However, complete heavy metal removal is a difficult task. Now, to increase the efficiency of this heavy metal removal by algae, not only free algae but algal biomass, which is cross-linked with different compounds like polysulfonate, formaldehyde, chlorohydrin, can improve the mechanical strength and chemical resistance and separation of this biomass from the effluent. The diagram which you see here on the left-hand side, that denotes the biosorption column for polluted water treatment, wherein polluted water is sent from the layers of algae which is immobilized on the surface. Now, as and when the water passes through this layer, now here only two layers are shown, but the purifying column can have multiple layers. So the entrapment process happens, and as the metal and algae, they have more and more contact. That is the time of contact between the metal ion in the effluent and the algae cell will define the metal ion removal from the effluent. As and when the ions pass through this column, they are either absorbed or diffused, or they are chelated through this algae cell, and the water which is comparatively clean, that is released from this plant. Although the bioabsorption mechanism is complex, algae are more efficient in such mechanisms. Coming to the agricultural application of algae, one of the application includes usage of fertilizer. As we know that algae are very rich in nitrate and phosphate compounds. The algal biomass itself is rich in NNP content. Mainly, as I mentioned, there are different algae like algae and cyanobacteria. In this case, cyanobacterial biomass is very rich in NNP. That is, it can be directly used as the effective biofertilizer source. It can be used to improve the soil physicochemical characteristics such as water holding capacity. As I just mentioned that it can be directly used. So this algae biomass, if you see this diagram here, the dried biomass of cyanobacteria, one of the bacteria that is mentioned here is a nostoc species. Now, nostoc is one of the cyanobacterial species which has a special feature that it can absorb the atmospheric nitrogen and it can fix it. So the dried biomass, if that is overlaid on the dried surface or dried land, it can increase the water holding capacity by retention of water in the land itself. In addition to that, such like algae or cyanobacterial biomass, they are rich in other nutrients or other compounds which stimulate the plant growth. The algae extract or cyanobacterial extract, which are typically used, are also commercially available as algae fertilizer. Now, as I mentioned, the use of biofertilizers here, the biofertilizers or biostimulants specifically, which promote the plant growth, are available, which are natural or synthetic substances that can be applied to seeds, plants, and soil. Mainly, they are applied as a foliar sprays. That is, they are sprayed on the plants and other. Um Mainly, they are sprayed on the plants in the field. These substances cause vital and structural processes, changes in the vital and structural processes in order to influence the plant growth through improved tolerance to the abiotic stresses. Now, these compounds, they directly have effect on the metabolic processes like ROS scavenging. As we all know that ROS are most destructive compound to the cellular processes. Also, this biostimulant, they have the effect on the membrane stability and osmoprotection of the entire plant. Not only that, but they also have impact on the shoot and root stimulation. That is, they can have the effect on the root growth and the shoot growth. They also help maintain the proper function of each part of the plant. This biostimulants mainly include the bioactive compounds like amino acids and fatty acid, etc. Not only the environmental application which are directly related to environment, but as we know that there was a recent spread of COVID and which is indirectly related to the environmental threat. Now algae have great role in preventing the spread of COVID by application of different compounds that it produces. There were recent publications by our group that have mentioned the use of different compounds that are produced by algae, which have direct effect on the direct application in fighting COVID-19. One of the compound is natural astaxanthin or the astaxanthin, which is the pigment that is produced from algae. Now, astaxanthin, as I mentioned in the previous slide here, ROS scavenging. Astaxanthin is one such pigment that has the major effect on the ROS, or it can directly scavenge the ROS. And COVID, as we know, that has certain effect on the human health, which includes the ROS pathway. Now, such applications, not only the environmental application, have made the algae as a promising species or promising source of product which can be used directly or indirectly into different applications. With this, I would like to acknowledge Department of Biotechnology and Reliance Industries for allowing me to present this webinar. Thank you.
Participants, you can post your questions in the chat box. Smita ma'am, we have a question from Jayesh sir. How do you preserve microalgae for long term?
Okay. So it depends on which microalgae we are talking about. Mainly, few microalgae can be stored in DMSO or glycerol, but that depends on for how long you want it to be stored. So for short-term storage, glycerol should work. However, for long-term storage, say for maybe for years or so, DMSO is well-known compound which allows the maintenance of the algal structure for maybe more than a year, but it is advisable that it has to be revived in regular interval.
Okay, Suman ma'am is asking, cultivation of algae is found to be difficult. Some easy tips or guidance for the same.
Well, it is difficult in multiple ways. I'm not sure what her exact question is, but what, as per my knowledge, the major difficulty comes after the cultivation. That after the algae is grown, there's a difficulty in harvesting the algae biomass because the removal of water is very tedious process for if you're growing algae in the bulk. So in that case, the better harvesting technology needs to be in place to deal with that. But during cultivation, I think it is more of the light energy capture and the nutrient optimization. that should be managed properly. And that would also relate it to which algae you want to grow for your whatever application you want to use it for.
The next question is from Priya ma'am. How one can deal with BOD COD ratio while treating wastewater using algae?
I think this question is more of a broad question, but I would say that BOD and COD, decreasing the BOD value would depend on how much oxygen you are using up. Now, in case of algae, they rather use CO2 and generate oxygen, but complete BOD removal or making it less and less, like say even in that case negligible, would require more and more algae to remove more organic matter, because BOD is more related to the organic matter removal. So in that case, algae would the culture of algae that would be required would be more if more of the BOD value should be decreased.
Uh, Umesh is asking which general media can be used for cultivation of algae in lab.
So media usage is more specific to specific algae. If we talk about algae and not cyanobacteria, then say for each algae there is specialized media. But in case of cyanobacteria, there is BG media, which is blue-green algae media, which can help in growing all of the algae. But for other algae, if it is some specific algae, I can tell, but for any other algae, as we know that nitrogen and nitrate and phosphate are the main compound along with certain vitamins and trace metal. So optimization of each compound should be done to grow some specific algae.
Next
There is no
question.
any general used. Yeah.
Yeah. Next question is how bioactive compounds produced by algae would help in combating COVID-19?
So bioactive compound in case of COVID-19, I am directly not sure about whether they are called as bioactive compound, but as I mentioned, one of the compound is astaxanthin that we have come across and we have already published a paper on that. So bioactive can be the one which is directly acting on this any of the cell. Astaxanthin is one such compound, but if there is any other compound, I am not sure if I'm not aware of it.
The question is from Madhuri ma'am. How to generate large amount of algal biomass in small space from wastewater?
This is a very good question, but it's a tricky question. So, for cultivation of algae using anything, even if it is a wastewater, we need to have a good reactor designing so that we can utilize the smaller space and lesser and lesser nutrients. A good design would include continual recycling of the flow of water and nutrients that are present in the spent media, and continuous harvesting of the biomass. So once you harvest the biomass, you can recycle the rest of the compounds. But till the point it is not having any toxic effect, it can be utilized. But I think it will require more of a reactor designing than anything else.
Snehal ma'am is asking, ma'am, you showed one slide where algae are being cultivated along the roadside in US. How it can be harvested there?
I do not have any slide at the moment, but I just showed one slide which was showing the algae cultivation in Switzerland. So the one which I had here, let me just project it here. Is this slide visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so the one which I have shown here is a picture from Switzerland. I do not have anything from the US CO2 sequestration process, but this is the one on the highway that was built around 2014 or so. It is not just these structures, but there are many structures which are like buildings are being converted to the algae reactors. So one of the walls, or say two of the walls along the buildings, they are converted to the reactor so that it can directly capture sunlight and the CO2 and produce biomass.
Next question is from Chaitali ma'am. Which algae are used for research work and which are the most primitive algae?
So as we all know, Chlamydomonas is one of the model organism that is extensively used across the world. That is the lab rat. So Chlamydomonas is very well explored, and it is the model organism. Whereas in case of cyanobacteria, I'm talking about cyanobacteria because when we say algae, it is we just consider that they are same, but in if we look at the details, they are not really same. So in case of algae, it is Chlamydomonas, and in case of cyanobacteria, it is more of the Pinacococcus and Synechocystis species, which are more of the model organism.
Priya ma'am is asking, while treating wastewater using bacteria, we sometimes find growth of algae. So is that beneficial or can harm to our treatment?
So, if you look at the activated sludge process, it rather includes the consortium. So we have bacteria, we have protozoa, we have different species, different organisms in that activated sludge. It it can have a consortium, and in that case, having algae along with bacteria can be beneficial. But that would depend on whether the algae is releasing toxic as or it is producing toxic. So which type of algae is growing, that needs to be checked.
Next question is from Umesh. How can we isolate specific algae from marine?
From
Marine. Marine algae. How can we isolate that?
meter algae. It's basically rich in saline water, or it is rich in salts. So if you know some specific algae is to be isolated, you can use media which can selectively grow that algae only. And even if you have more than one algae, and if there is a facility, you can always go for 16S RNA or some technique that would identify the algae of interest and then selectively grow that algae only. But basic thing would be isolation on the plate and then picking the colony and then identifying the species and the genus.
Next question is from Akshada ma'am. If wastewater is having high pH or have low pH, which is not suitable for growth of algae, then how to acclimatize the algae in such waters for wastewater treatment?
Okay, so wastewater, as sounds, it is not that simple. Wastewater treatment always have some pre-treatment to be done. So in the initial process, it has a primary treatment wherein we have the removal of solid particles and heavy particles, which where what is allowed to settle down. I mean, what is allowed to stand for a long time, and the particles settle down, and whatever supernatant is there.
I think we have lost connection with Smita ma'am.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
I think I got disconnected in between. Was I audible that time?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yeah, I don't know at what point I got disconnected.
Ma'am, you were
So, what was the last? Yeah,
isolating of marine algae.
I think I was answering something else after that.
Yes, ma'am. The next question you were answering was the
I was talking about.
wastewater treatment, how algae are acclimatized in that wastewater treatment.
Yeah, so as I was mentioning, the pH needs to be that needs to be adjusted to the requirement of algae.
Okay. The next question is from Mayuri. How we in India should use algae for decreasing amount of CO2 in environment?
It is not just in India, but everywhere else, wherever possible, we should take advantage of algae being the very promising candidate to use up the freely available solar energy and the CO2 that we generate even with the smaller activities, routine activities. So, in places wherever possible, we can have the algae cultivation plants, or in smaller cases, we can have the reactors which can pick up CO2, and we can use wastewater from, say, our kitchen waste or something. And that can be used to generate biomass, which can directly be used as the fertilizer or for some other use. I think this flow of using CO2 and wastewater for the generation of fertilizer should be it should work very fine.
Next question is from Jayesh sir. What would be the optimal inoculum density for scale-up of unicellular and filamentous microalgae, ensuring optimum growth rate?
I think when we speak about what should be the inoculum density or what should be the media and what should be the requirement, that will depend very much on what algae we are talking about. So if I talk about some algae like spirulina, it has a different requirement. When I talk about chlorella, it has a different requirement altogether. So, if I talk about initial inoculum density, it also depends on where we are growing the algae. So, if we are growing it directly in the outside environment, the inoculum density that would be required would be higher. Otherwise, they'll not be able to tolerate the sunlight. If it is inside or it is in the lower light intensities, the inoculum density requirement is much lower because the light itself is very low. So it is very much relative to what all parameters you want the algae to be grown at. I think if the question is more specific, I can answer. I can give a specific answer, but this is a very broad question.
Next question is from Pradeep sir. Ma'am, some algae are causing water pollution. How to control it?
Okay, so this is kind of a cycle wherein we talk about the eutrophication, wherein if we release the wastewater, which is rich in nitrogen and phosphorus, or rather nitrogen and phosphate, they rather attract algae and they cause algae bloom. And algae bloom end up causing eutrophication and covering of the entire water body, wherein we end up disrupting the ecosystem. So, in case where we are releasing the wastewater directly into the water bodies or the natural water bodies, the wastewater should be treated or it should be free of any nutrients that can attract the algae, or it should not promote the algae growth. So the way the concern here is the wastewater treatment.
Alka ma'am is asking, how can I create secondary structure of an intron 18S rDNA sequences of green algae?
How can you create a structure of?
Secondary structure of an intron 18S rDNA sequences of green algae.
I think I'm not the correct person to answer this. Does she mean SR or SI? Silencing RNA or
18,
SR RNA?
18S rDNA, recombinant DNA. 18S rDNA.
Recombinant DNA. I'm not aware of the secondary structure, but if you talk about the primary structures, then we can get it synthesized very easily. If you know the sequence of the DNA that you want, you can have the smaller bases. In that case, even segments or the fragment of around 100 or more base pairs can be synthesized easily. And if you want some secondary structures, I am not sure if that can be. I mean, I have not come across this secondary structure synthesis, but primary structures can be easily synthesized.
Sridevi ma'am is asking, what will be the most easy, accurate and economical method for identification of isolated algae?
If you want identification to be then I think CNSRA is one of the best method that can be done, which not only tells you about the genus but also species to some extent. So it is 16S RNA and followed by the phylogenetic tree analysis. So that should work fine to identify the algae.
That's all with the questions, ma'am. So before we end the session, small instruction to the participants. Feedback form for the webinar will be sent via email. The participants has to fill and submit the form. Only then e-certificate will be mailed to you. As we end the session, I would like to propose vote of thanks. I thank Dr. Mala Kharkar ma'am, CEO of Partner Verde College, and Principal Sir Dr. Shrikant Sawant sir for their support. Also, I would like to thank Ms. Ruchita Rane ma'am, coordinator of Department of Microbiology and Biotechnology, for organizing this webinar. I am thankful to our speaker, Dr. Smita Patil ma'am, for taking out time from busy schedule and enlightening us regarding importance of algae in environment protection on this Environmental Day. Last but not the least, I thank you all the participants for participating in webinar and making it a success. Thank you. I request all to kindly leave the session.